All right, it's time for Yogi and the Beach Man. Hi, I'm Jim the Yogi.
And I'm Rick Beach, the Beach Man.
We're two Michigan transplants now living in Southwest Florida.
In fact, we're cousins born in 1964, just a month apart.
I like to meditate.
And I like to play bass in a band.
I'm into chanting Om.
And I'm into throwing down some classic rock.
But together, we're on a mission
to promote people that are helping other people.
We want to make the world a better place.
One conversation at a time.
So sit back,
turn up the volume,
and get ready to laugh.
Because we like to have fun
while we spread the love.
Interviewing lovely people. Yes, we have fun.
Okay, welcome to Yogi and the Beach Man. Today we have a special guest with us, Joe Reilly, singer and songwriter. Super stoked to have you here today, Joe. Joe, you know me. I'm Jim the Yogi. We've known each other for years.
I'm Rick Beach, the Beach Man, and I've known Jim for years, being we're cousins and grew up together.
Nice to be here with you both.
Thank you. Thanks so much for being on our show today.
Yeah.
So Joe, I first heard of you and my wife, Abby. I was working up a Song in the Morning Yoga Retreat Center, and I think it was the second Yoga Fest that I put on, maybe the first, I can't remember. And we were talking about who to bring in for musicians, and she's like, I should have you listen to this Joe Reilly guy. I'm like, who? She's like, Joe Reilly. So she starts playing me some music off her iPod, and I'm like, what? Why have you been keeping this guy from me? Why? We've been together for how many months? You haven't told me about this guy. This is amazing. And I was so excited. And then reaching out to you and getting you involved with Yoga Fest just made me so happy.
Yeah, that was many years ago. And
Yeah.
I'm still writing songs and making music and grateful to be doing so.
Yeah. So I'm sure a lot of people that are listening right now have no idea who you are. So why don't you tell us where you're from,
Well,
how you got started, the whole 9 yards.
yeah, I grew up in Kalamazoo, Michigan, which is Southwest Michigan. Both my parents are musicians. They sang in church a lot growing up. I was raised Catholic, and I say I was raised on Catholic folk music, so kind of acoustic guitars and the more contemporary church songs. And that really taught me a lot about, sharing music as a spiritual expression, but also as a spiritual practice. And I went to college at University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. It was there that I started singing with a Native American drum group, getting in touch with my native indigenous roots, Cherokee and Choctaw from my dad's side. I didn't grow up knowing much about that, and it was really a powerful experience to connect with. We're called the Tree Town Singers, and we would sing at powwows and ceremonies and community cultural events around Southeast Michigan, and even around the country we would travel. And that taught me a lot about putting my voice out more fully, also as a spiritual expression, as a prayer, but also kind of flip the script on the dominant culture's kind of commodification of music, or making the music industry more about fame and fortune. In our native communities, the singing and being a singer is a really revered role, but it's also a role of service. So it's about being of service to the community through bringing the songs and the music. And that taught me a lot about, I think, humility and keeping grounded in a spiritual purpose of what I'm doing. And then fast forward after college, a lot of challenges and trying to figure out how to make it as a musician and also how to survive as a human being. And I encountered a book that my dad had by Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a Vietnamese Buddhist monk and teacher and peace activist and scholar. And that really set me on a path of exploring mindfulness. And then I was able to, a few years later, go to a retreat with Thich Nhat Hanh and the Plum Village community, and was really blown away to discover, like, wow, there's a whole international community of people actually living these teachings. And became a part of that community and have been practicing with them for the past 20 years. Um, and that community also really gave me a spiritual home for my music. So really supporting again that aspiration to be of service and to help um, water seeds of love and compassion and peace in the collective consciousness through music. And so kind of a deeper purpose than just the ego-driven fame and fortune. Although that still comes up, you know, I still have to work with that part that wants attention or validation or um, recognition, you know.
Hmm.
But it's really about just making music from the heart, from the spirit, and sharing that in a good way that can help other people on their path. And that's really what I do, and it makes me happy, and I'm grateful to be able to have opportunities to do that.
I spent some time yesterday and actually this morning listening to a few of your stuff, some of your stuff on Spotify. So I'm just scrolling through, and every song, and I had never heard anything you had played before this morning, and or yesterday rather. And every single song either has some kind of upbeat message, or it was all positive, or spoke in a good way on a social issue or whatever. So it was it's a little different than I'm not going to say from what I expected, but what you're normally hearing, on the heck, I don't even turn on, the radio anymore. I just listen to what I want to listen to. So when I
Yeah.
stumble across or find someone like you who has that kind of message, that's what I seek out. So and that positivity will find its niche and obviously has.
Mhm.
So it was cool though. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed it.
Well, thanks for listening and thanks for that feedback. And yeah, I want my music to help build connection and community and not tear down anything. Just build it and but also help compost a lot of the conditioning we've had about what we're supposed to be doing and what we're here to do, you know, to transform the suffering too. That's a big part of it. And that's just from my own lived experience. And then, you know, I started doing music with kids too, and that became a big chapter of my music. It wasn't really intentional, but maybe because of the positive qualities, a lot of kids were drawn to it. And I started writing songs with kids, and then I had a whole group of kids songs, so I made an album with kids, and that kind of you know, took on a life of its own. So now I've released 4 children's albums and 5 regular albums, and I'm working on a new one with my band. The first non-children's album in over 10 years, and it's coming along really nicely. I'm currently raising money for that. Folks can donate through my Venmo at Joe Reilly Music, or you can download a acoustic version of the album on Bandcamp under Joe Reilly Music and donate to support the new album that way too. I'm just a
Well,
self-funded musician. You know, I don't have any any big company supporting me or anything like that. I'm part of
You're
a
you're, you're not in meetings with Sony or anything like that.
no, I have not been. I'm part of a collective of artists here in Michigan called the Earthwork Music Collective, and we're a collective of independent artists supporting one another and working together cooperatively. But um, yeah, albums these days, I mean, it's always been an expensive venture, but now it's harder to kind of earn the money back through the streaming. We don't get very
mhm.
much. We get little fractions of a cent unless you're somebody who's getting like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of streams. So it's humble work, but it's really good. It's for that deeper purpose and hopefully for the collective good. Yeah.
Well, I noticed yesterday I was actually on the way to a gig. I play bass in a old guy band, and uh,
Nice.
and my girlfriend sends me as I'm just pulling into the VFW parking lot. She sends me, she goes, Rick, you got to listen to this. It's really cool. And it's Alice Cooper singing Now I'm Mr. Nice Guy with all the lyrics of No More Mr. Nice Guy changed to positive. Now I'm Mr. Nice Guy.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
really taking it, and I'm looking at and I'm reading like the notes. It's like Rob Halford from Judas Priest slash all these heavy big name guys that are targeting kids and turning their message around to a positive note rather than like we all know rock and roll music, it has a dark side. But
Mhm.
to take those old classic rock songs. So now I'm thinking now you're gonna have grandma and grandpa throwing in Alice Cooper, and the 7-year-old or the 5-year-old in the back seat is going to be listening to Joe Reilly 1 minute on Spotify, go right into Slash. And that's pretty cool that these
Right.
guys are taking that positivity and turning it around like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
Have you heard any of that stuff?
I have not heard any of Alice Cooper stuff. No. I mean, I probably have heard, the well-known stuff played on the radio, but I don't know that
Mhm.
it's Alice Cooper.
Well, for him to have the image that he had over the years and then to like turn it around like that, I just thought was really cool
Yeah.
that these
Yeah,
old
that's great.
headbangers are bringing a positive message to kids.
Yeah. Sure.
So, Joe, my grandkids were down here about a month ago now, and we were waiting. I was waiting in the car with them while their mom, my daughter and wife, ran into Sprouts to get some food, and I put on Turkey Vulture for them. And that's one of my favorite songs that you do, besides those songs
Nice.
from the Greyhound bus tour. I just love Turkey Vulture. So I play this song and they're just looking at me like I'm crazy. I play it again and then it just took off. And all week long they kept every time we were in the car, play Turkey Vulture, play Turkey Vulture. And they live in can't think Indian River, Michigan. And so they got back home and the first time they got in the car with their dad, they're like, play Turkey Vulture, play Turkey Vulture. So Turkey Vulture's getting a lot more hits on Spotify now for you.
Great. That's awesome. That's a kid favorite for sure.
Yeah, yeah. That and Little Tomato. But I really, really dug your Greyhound Bus Tour album. You want to talk a little bit about that, about the making of that and how that came about? It's just
Sure.
such a dynamic album.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. That one came out in 2013, so that was actually my last like adult album or non-kids album. And it was kind of a collection of songs influenced by my spiritual practice and development and um, some of the songs written at Plum Village on retreats. And it was inspired by, when I first graduated college, my parents gave me this guitar that I still play now. It's a Martin acoustic, and I saved up some money and bought a 60-day Greyhound bus pass, and I had recorded my very first album, Mothers and Daughters, in 2001. And I just went out on the Greyhound and kind of traveled the perimeter of the country. You can go with the bus pass, you can go like anywhere Greyhound goes. And I would just stop where I had a friend and stay with them and play out on the street corners and Central Park and in front of the White House and at open mics and um, just it was really like it was kind of like putting this aspiration out to the universe. How do I do this? How do I find a life as a musician? There's not a clear path, so let me just
Hmm.
take some steps of faith here. And it was a wild ride and adventure, and so that was, when I was first starting out. So I made Greyhound Bus Tour like a decade later, kind of looking back and seeing how those seeds had been planted and how they had grown in different ways, and the roots had deepened and the branches had grown up and matured a little bit, and
Hmm.
so it was kind of like a postcard to my younger self, like, hey, through space and time, like, um, this is possible. There is a way, even though you can't see it yet. And then it was the first album I did on the Earthwork Music label, and some really great friends who are part of that music collective helped, add their instrumentation and voices to the song. So they really brought the songs to another level musically, um, and helped produce it. And yeah, and that I'm proud of that album. Like I really feel like it's hard to produce something, a recording that you really feel like it represents what your vision is musically. Um, but what I've learned over the years for those albums, and we did Greyhound like this, is to kind of really do the recording almost like a retreat style, where we are staying together in one place for a few days. We're sharing meals together. We're meditating together. Um, and then we get to record in that space. So the engineer will come and set up like a remote studio basically. And then um, we're mostly in one room. I think the drums were in a separate room because the drums are so loud, but it's more of it's for me, it's a way to capture more of the live energy and the intention of the songs rather than just going into a regular studio and cranking it out. So we did Greyhound like that. We did the current album I'm working on like that as well, and um, I think it really comes through just the energy of the togetherness of the musicians from that experience.
So how many guys or people are you talking about, and who's in it? Can you tell us about who's in your band and what they play, what to expect from this new album?
Sure. The new album, my band is called the Community Gardeners, and we have three vocalists in addition to myself. So John Driscoll plays drums and sings, and he does a little bit of Irish flute in there too. And then Leslie Ann Stone and Jenny Jones are both vocalists, so they're singing with me on it. Chris Good is playing electric bass. Billy King is playing guitar, lead guitar, electrics, and acoustics. He adds a little bit of piano in there too. He had an old 1860 something Steinway in his barn studio on his family farm where we recorded, so he added some of that in. And then some of the friends we met, we've been part of this Rhythm of the Earth Mindful Music Festival the last 2 years at the Deer Park Monastery in Southern California, where we've met some other musicians. So Glenn Crow is playing keyboard, and he added some keyboard on that. And then Chris D'Amiglio is playing trumpet on a few of the tunes. And then I got a couple of my friends who are hip hop artists, Peace Be Free and Born I, who are adding just a couple individual verses on two of the songs. And then Mark Stone is our percussionist in the band. We still have to add him in. We've got just a couple more overdub sessions. So Mark's going to add his percussion, and then Born I and Peace Be Free are adding their verses. And then actually this Friday, my parents are going to add a couple of things. My dad's going to play bass on a tune. He plays upright bass, and then my mom's going to sing on that tune too. So bringing in the parents to help with that too.
That's really cool. Did you mention a name of this album yet? Did you?
Oh, I didn't. It's going to be called Learn to Love Again.
Learn
Learn
to
to
Love
Love
Again.
Again. Yeah.
That's a great title.
Yeah.
That's exciting. You also do a lot of work. A lot of your songs, of course, has that spiritual side that you were talking about, being present, breathing, different things like that. But you also write a lot about the environment, very pro environment. I love that about your songwriting.
Mhm.
What what inspired you to write so much about the environment and be friendly towards the environment?
Well, for me, they're not separate. So the environment is connected to my spirituality just because those are the teachings that I've been given from indigenous spiritual teachings as well as Buddhist teachings. Like
Mm-hmm.
we recognize that we're deeply interconnected, interrelated, that we don't exist outside of the circle of all beings. And so just recognizing that connection is a big part of what fuels and inspires my music. And then um, wanting to support the health of those connections, recognizing that without clean water, none of us can survive without clean air. It's just real basic,
Mm-hmm.
but we get so lost in our human economy and distractions that we forget. We take it for granted. We get pretty arrogant as human beings and think that, it's all about us and our technology, but it's really all about the deep connection to Mother Earth and to all beings and to the original internet, which is, you know, the connection of everything. What Thich Nhat Hanh calls interbeing
Mm-hmm.
is that's what's supporting us, allowing us to be here. Yeah.
Yeah, that
So my
what you
songs
just
just I'm hoping to just like remind myself and also others and wake us, help us to wake up to that reality. Hmm.
excellent. And I love that so many of your songs geared towards the youth and the kids. I mean, it's almost like teaching them things they're not getting anywhere else. They're not getting from school, maybe from the parents a little bit, maybe from some spiritual places or their religion. But you're bringing in way more teaching to these kids through your lyrics than they're ever going to get anywhere else, in my opinion. And I think that's
Well, that's
it's so
great. That's
needed.
great to hear. Thanks for that reflection. I hope that it can help support kids in building awareness of themselves and their connections with each other and with the earth. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't journal a lot, but back when I did a little bit, this message kept coming through like kids need a role model. Kids need a role model. And to me, like Joe Reilly, you're the role model. So
Well, thank you. I
yeah.
do my best, and none of us are perfect, but
Hmm.
I think the important thing is doing our own work and taking responsibility for ourselves, and then yeah, we can be role models to each other of how to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned the spiritual interconnectedness, and we were just interviewed a few days ago Paul Hess, and he was talking about how he's doing energetic testing remotely. And Rick's
Hmm.
like, how the heck is that possible? How can this? And I'm trying to tell him we're all connected. It's this is a universal energy.
So are you familiar with this, what he's talking about?
No, I don't know about the
This
energetic
energetic testing?
testing. No.
It's muscle testing. It's just tuning into your body, letting it decide what things are beneficial to you or what aren't beneficial to you, and your body gives a muscle response based on the message. You train it to ask yes or no questions. You ask those questions about something being good for you or not, and your body responds to tell you if it is. So
Hmm.
it's a simple process. It works. I've experienced it, but I didn't know it was possible remotely. And when you talk about
Yeah.
this interconnection, absolutely.
Yeah. Sure.
And well, I totally disagree with Jim's theory of this particular science or lack thereof. I don't know if you want to get into that debate right now, being
Nah.
being that Joe's not really familiar with the subject. Because Joe, if you
Yeah.
were, I'm sure you'd take my side on this. So
Right.
I don't know what that. So you got this new album coming out.
Yeah.
What other things are you got in the wheels in the works for the future?
That's a good question. I never know. I never know. It's just where the music leads, and
Mm-hmm.
putting it out there, and once a new set of songs is released, it has its own life, and we see where it leads us, and I do my best to follow and to keep it um, in the context of being of service, being of service. So
Sure.
Are most of your lives, I mean, I'm assuming you do a lot of live performances.
yeah. hmm
With or without your band? I mean, how does that break down?
Both. Yeah. This last year, we've been fortunate to get a lot of performing opportunities with the whole band. It's harder because there's more people, so it costs more, and but there it just has happened where we've had a whole set of really nice gigs that have been able to pay for the whole band. Um,
And I know
a
Jim
lot of
ran
the
their yoga retreat. That's how you guys met. And
Yeah,
you had mentioned about some other type of festivals. Is that mainly what you get? Is that your clientele, so to speak? Uh, Retreats and mindfulness festivals and stuff like that?
retreats, different kinds of music festivals, including mindfulness music festivals or yoga festivals, but all different kinds. And we played at a university. We played at an art fair. So it's really wherever we get invited. Um, the kids gigs, those are usually solo, or I'll have maybe just Mark and Leslie Ann, a vocalist and percussionist, with me. And those are a lot of schools, libraries, also festivals, um, kind of educational events, nature centers. Um, so
Those
yeah,
got those type of gigs with the kids got to be fun.
they are. They're a lot of fun. I learned early on with music with kids has to be interactive, and um, so it keeps it very engaging. Yeah, and they're great at staying in the present moment, so it helps me stay in the present moment and not get too serious and be playful. hmm
Mm-hmm. So what inspires you as far as other musicians or bands? Are there
Oh
any or
wow. Oh yeah, lots of inspiration. Um, Many of the musicians in the Earthwork Music Collective, so a lot of local musicians that are big inspirations to me. A lot of the, you know, classic singer-songwriters like Joni Mitchell is a big influence. Neil Young, um, Paul Simon, Simon and Garfunkel, Bob Dylan, and then in high school growing up, a lot of like kind of alternative rock or hip hop was a big influence. So
Mhm.
like the Pixies were my favorite band in high school. Tribe Called Quest was my favorite hip hop group. Um, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Uh, and then I listened to actually a lot of jazz music too. I really have been influenced by jazz, John Coltrane and Freddie Hubbard and um, Ahmad Jamal and a lot of different musicians. And I had a guitar teacher here in Detroit for about 25 years or so. He just died a few years ago. He was 98. Um, his name was Gilbert Potter. He went by Farmer Jack, and he introduced me to a lot of like old time, artists like Benny Goodman and Charlie Christian, and would tell me stories of like seeing those guys playing in Detroit, and um, so he really helped nurture a lot of the musical roots that I have too.
Well,
So a lot of
if you have a
different
mentor like that
influences.
in their 90s, that's been around and a musician for their entire lives, to take advantage. I mean, obviously you've taken advantage of that bank of knowledge, and uh, to have that history backing you up. It just has to help you as a musician to be pretty well rounded. If you're ever
Yeah, I
looking for
hope
everything
so.
from
Yeah,
John Coltrane to Joni Mitchell, that's
yeah, yeah, yeah. And to recognize the again the interrelationship, you know, like music is a universal language and it can be in different genres, but there's ways that it can still cut through right to the heart, you know, and affect you and reach you in a deep way, like beyond the intellect and beyond the thinking mind. And, you know, I've experienced that in listening to musicians of all different styles. Um, and then I've also experienced it in myself. Like I'm playing the same songs, but I can share it with all these different communities and it can still have a meaning, you know, beyond lines of race or religion or age. And to me, that's like really the power of music is it connects us beyond these identities that are important, but that can also be used to create separation or division.
Kind of curious about your indigenous teachings that you learned and with the Buddhism and what type of things weave together and what did you find that were really, where those teachings really meshed?
Well, I think like all wisdom teachings, it comes down to respect and love and really learning how to do that, you know, how to live
Hmm.
a good life where we can feel like we're honorable in our actions and that we can feel like we're contributing something to the community and that we're helping those who are going to come after us. So with the knowledge of both like the ancestors who have gone before, but also those who will come after. And I think definitely in Buddhist teachings and in indigenous teachings, that awareness is there. Like it's not just about us. You know, we're not
Hmm.
separate from the ancestors or from the future generations. And, you know, we have an opportunity during our lifetime to hopefully make things a little better for those who will come after us. And we can also live in gratitude to those who have made a way for us. So I think that's a commonality, as well as, like I said before, just the awareness of interbeing. We're all related, you know, like that is a universal truth, and it's a big part of the Buddhist teachings I know and practice, as well as the indigenous teachings that I know and practice.
Hmm.
So
Very
learning to
cool.
look at each other as relatives rather than um, enemies or uh, competitors, you know.
yeah, I think about things that are going on in the world as you're talking, and I'm thinking, I have no I've never had any complaint or problem with anybody on the other side of the world that
Mm-hmm.
we've been at war with, in the last since heck since 2001, right? Since the
Mm-hmm.
and and that's been my big thing that I've been preaching for since then. Hey, this that it's all the strife and discontent in the world political scene right now and all the wars that are going on. I see us supporting as a nation financially and with militarily and wondering just why does all this money just has to get wasted to go kill people that I have never ever had a problem with. And I don't want to take this conversation into that political realm, but like what you just said, everybody's connected in their own way. And I make it a point to say hi to everybody, and I want to be friendly with everybody. And I always try to give that as I can see. I know Jim does too, and you're the same way. And just if that could, I guess if just I wish the power structure of B would be just open to those type of messages, because it seems like the evil and the corrupt rise to the top. And it just makes me sad, but it makes me happy when I meet someone like you who is pushing, goodness and positivity around when there's so much negative in the world all around us. And especially when you're reaching out to kids. And the worst thing in the world I think you can give a kid is, this an iPhone right now. I mean, it opens a world of darkness, really, to kids. So to have any type of positive influences, and which is once again what I try to give out daily or all the time for that matter. It's just and that's where this podcast really has went in the last 6 months. JP and I have been doing this, but we're always trying to reach out to people in the positive realm and people that are helping other people in one way or the other. And it's interesting, and hopefully, if you can reach out to one or two of those little kids or get through to them, maybe when they get to that position of power, they'll look at things a little differently.
Yeah, and that's what the hope is. And I think there are a lot more people in the world who are doing good work, but it's often underreported.
Mhm.
The train wrecks get the
If it
all
bleeds,
the
it leads.
attention.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of suffering in the world too, and we're not separate from that. And we do have power in that we get to create the peace and reconciliation in ourselves first. And that is hard work. It's practice. It takes sustained practice over time and dedication and diligence and support of community. But we can do that, and that's one of Thich Nhat Hanh's biggest teachings is peace in ourselves and peace in the world. So it's not just out there, that we need to create the peace, but it starts right here within each of us and then in our communities, and then we can cultivate that energy collectively and we can bring it out into the world. And that's what I'm hoping to do with my music, is to be part of that, be part of those movements that are generating peace. And we're not just anti-war, but we're creating peace, you know.
Yeah, you have some beautiful songs on diversity, which you don't hear a
Yeah.
lot of people singing about diversity these days. So I think you're doing what you are aiming to do, Joe. Doing
Well,
a good
thank
job
you.
of it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate it. I appreciate the encouragement because the path is not easy and it's still, after all
Mhm.
these years, not always clear,
Mhm.
how the next step is going to be made or, but I have learned like I got to keep taking the steps and walking in faith and trust and knowing that there will be a way. And
Mhm.
yeah, so I appreciate the support.
Yeah. Having that faith in the universe to provide for you. Uh, I know
Yeah,
that's not always easy.
no,
Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah.
So you've
Or
talked
it's a,
about Buddha, you talked about Buddhism and other Native American cultures and whatnot, but what would you consider yourself to be? I mean, not a Christian, a Buddhist, or I mean, if you have a characterization of yourself, what would it be from a
well,
religious
I
standpoint?
from a religious standpoint, I identify as all of them. I'm Catholic. I am, that's a big part of my roots. I'm indigenous and I practice really the teachings of the Anishinaabe teachings here where I live in Michigan. Um, those are most of the spiritual teachings I've received. And then engaged Buddhism. Yeah, I've taken the mindfulness trainings in Thich Nhat Hanh's tradition and really try to live that. But when we live it deeply, it's also non-Buddhist. It doesn't have to be It doesn't have to be constrained to our idea of what Buddhism is. Um, it's inclusive and it's made up of all these different parts. So for me, it's just one spiritual path, and all these different traditions help to inform it. Hmm.
Have you ever come into a situation where between your Catholic upbringing, your Buddhist beliefs, there's conflict there, and you have to maybe go to somebody and say, "Hey, what's the right path here? Which way do I go?" Were you ever at a fork in the road there, as far as those two type of denomination. Well, for lack of a better term, denomination.
No, I haven't been, because the core teachings are the same. Again, it's about love and respect. And it doesn't always align with what the institutions teach, but it's really about the deeper truths and practices, you know? It's about embodied practices. How do we embody love? That's really what it comes down to. That's why the album's called Learn to Love Again, because I keep relearning and learning and learning. And I'm still learning how to do that, you know.
Spreading ripples of love. That's awesome. So you brought a guitar with you, or have a guitar with you. You
Yes,
mentioned your parents'
definitely.
guitar.
Well, the one they gave me, I've had now for 24 years, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And I understand you're prepared to play us a song today.
Yeah, I'd love to do that song, Learn to Love Again, if that's all right.
Oh, okay. This is going to be on the new album. Is that right?
Yep, the title track. Yep.
Okay. And is there a little, I mean, you mentioned a little bit about why the album's called Learn to Love Again. Is there anything different from this song that you would want to say that where it came from in your heart?
No, same place.
Okay.
It's almost beyond belief, oh, it's a sacred grief. Oh, what a relief to let go, to let it flow, to not know, to live and be alive, to deepen and to thrive. Together we survive by depending on each other's brilliance, strengthening our shared resilience, loved by the billions and billions. This is the art of living. When we have love, we're given and can cry through the pain. This is the art of loving. When we're left with nothing and can learn to love again, learn to love again, learn to love again, learn to love again and again and again, learn to love again, learn to love again, learn to love again. Love has so much to show when we let our hearts grow and take it slow. Putting bare feet on the dirt here on Mother Earth, remembering our human worth. Each one a sacred part of the circle of hearts, living these healing arts. This is the art of living. When we have love, we're given and can cry through the pain. This is the art of loving. When we're left with nothing and can learn to love again, learn to love again, learn to love again, learn to love again and again and again, learn to love again, learn to love again, learn to love again. Let the rain fall, hear the spirit call, and sing to it all. Let the rain fall, hear the spirit call, and sing to it all. Let the rain fall, hear the spirit call, sing to it all. Let the rain fall, hear the spirit call, sing to it all. This is the art of living. When we have love, we're given and can cry through the pain. This is the art of loving. When we're left with nothing and can learn to love again, learn to love again, learn to love again, learn to love again and again and again, learn to love again, learn to love again, learn to love again.
Oh, I love it, Joe.
Thank
Great,
you.
great. Thank you for performing that for us. It feels
Yeah, happy
special
to
knowing that
share.
it's like we get to listen to it before your album comes
It's
out.
like a
Yeah,
sneak
yeah,
preview.
Yeah.
yeah,
A-
definitely.
As you were playing that, I'm thinking, man, this is a really cool song. And a couple weeks ago, we had some friends of ours. They're some brothers that live in the Tampa area, and they gig in our neighborhood once a month, and
Uh,
they're really in same kind of people that we like to hang around with. Just two great guys, and they sat here in this living room where we're at, and they done a couple of songs for us. So
Mhm.
as you're playing this, I'm like, man, I could see in like 6 months if we keep getting great musicians or you back or whatever, and we'll have like the hits of Yogi and the Beach Man, soundtrack with you guys in it. No,
That'd be
yeah,
yeah,
really cool.
really, really cool song, great message, great lyrics.
Yeah, for
thank
sure.
you. Yeah, you could release a podcast album.
Yeah, that'd be
Oh,
cool.
that'd be neat. Yeah.
That Martin's got some war wounds on it, huh? Your Martin
What's
guitar
that?
looks like it's got some war wounds on it. That
Oh yeah,
Martin.
it's got a lot of miles on it. Like I
Yeah.
said, it's been to the Greyhound bus tour, and this was from a Chicago winter.
Ooh.
So yeah, but it's been patched back together, and it still has a
And
lot
as
of good
guitars like
good
that get
energy.
older, they just keep sounding better.
Yeah, it's
I,
true.
I think I think there's energy that ends up in the wood
Yeah,
over time in a guitar,
yeah,
and the way that the fibers of the wood change over time. Because I have a Taylor that I've had for about 15 years, and I know it sounds better today than it did when I
yeah,
bought it. And I think it's
yeah,
just the energy and the love that's been in that thing.
yeah. I agree.
And being from Kalamazoo, I got to ask, do you have a Gibson?
No, I don't. No, I do
Oh,
not.
okay.
Just Martin, and I have a Fender electric, and I inherited Farmer Jack's guitars, an old Guild hollow body electric, and a newer Martin acoustic too. Um,
Okay.
but this is my main instrument that I play most of the time.
Interesting, the name Farmer Jack from Michigan because it was such a big grocery store outlet
Grocery
for
store
so many
chain.
years. Yeah. I think in
Yeah,
one of
he
our,
he
go ahead.
he earned that name because he and his wife had bought up the vacant lots next to their house and farmed them. Like they both came up from the South and grew up, farming,
Mm-hmm.
and then he would distribute the produce to the neighbors, um, literally bringing like wheelbarrows full of tomatoes and things. And so everybody in the neighborhood just called him Farmer Jack.
That's really
And
cool.
that's how I met him, doing a community garden project when I was in college.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't know what we were doing. We had no clue. But he showed up with a big giant straw hat and overalls, and he taught us about farming and urban gardening. And then I discovered he played music and had toured around in the 40s and 50s and 60s. And like, wow. So yeah,
I
very
remember
cool
hearing in the
connection.
news, and because as you know, Jim and I are both from the Detroit area too. But I remember seeing something 10, 15 years ago about in the inner city, they were demolishing a lot of the houses, clearing lots, and they were making these inner city gardens where they
Mm-hmm.
take two or three empty lots, or they were trashed houses because there's some
Mm-hmm.
rundown areas in downtown, and I'm sure it hasn't changed all that much. But were you a part of that? Any of those
A little
community
bit, yeah.
gardens?
It's definitely a big movement, the urban gardening movement in Detroit and urban farming. I was a small part of it, but it is still thriving. And there is still a lot of blight in the city, abandonment or neglect of buildings and properties, and um, yeah, there are still a lot of people and community groups that help to transform that into gardens. It's really a beautiful, beautiful process.
That
That would be
is.
cool. I've always thought of it. If I ever got back to where I was living close to an urban environment and could participate in something like that, that would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Because I like growing stuff.
Yeah. Get your hands in the dirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it almost feels silly to ask you this question, Joe, but we've been kind of towards the end of our podcast asking our guests this question. So, but I'm going to ask you anyway, even though it feels silly. Joe Reilly, what are you doing to make the world a better place?
Hmm. Healing myself and helping to support others in healing themselves. Yeah.
That's a great answer. Yeah. And so much healing and work that you're doing through your music too. That just
Yeah.
really shines.
Yeah, music's just an expression of that, you know, and
Hmm.
it's a powerful expression that, again, where we can share and meet and connect on a deeper level. So
Any
grateful
plans
for
on making it Florida way this winter?
it.
Anything on the schedule?
No, I would love to. I was just down there for a recovery conference in Daytona Beach, which was
Hmm.
amazing. But other than that, I don't have anything else. But you know, like I said, it's wherever the music takes me. I'd love to come back.
Well, if it brings you
Cool.
to South Florida, make sure you let us know. We'd love to meet up.
Okay,
Yeah.
definitely,
Yeah, Abby and I
definitely.
bought a house down here in Port Charlotte about 4 months ago now. So if you
Oh
ever want to
wow.
vacay from the cold weather, you're welcome to
Yeah.
come down and stay with us for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay, that's good to know.
yeah.
And
Thank
I'm a
you.
whole 2.6 miles away, so it's
Oh, great.
pretty convenient that we got the band back together after 20
Yeah,
years of being
yeah.
apart in different states and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's fun.
Well, you know, that's how I did a lot of my touring, is just going where I had friends and
Hmm.
had connections. So,
Well, set up some gigs in Port Charlotte and you can come here.
okay.
That'd be great. And I got to give a shout out to my daughter, Erin, because I know she's going to be watching this. She loves your music. Remember when she met you at the other festival, we brought you in for Peace Pizzazz, and I introduced
Oh,
you, and
yeah.
her mouth's hanging open, her eyes are wide. She's just like starstruck. It's
Uh,
like Joe Reilly. That's so cool.
That
So
is
well,
cool.
hey,
yeah.
Aaron.
I'll say that again.
Hey there, Aaron.
She's living in Muskegon now. So
Oh, cool.
yeah.
Awesome.
Are you still going around and doing programs for kids in the schools,
Yes.
bringing your
Yep.
music to the schools? That's
Yeah.
excellent. You get
Yeah.